The next topic that we want to talk about is temperature, and more specifically, what's becoming more popular now is the exposure to colder temperatures. So we've talked already a little bit about how our body clock in the brain uses light and temperature to understand the world around us. And in regards to temperature, what this means is that we actually need to be experiencing different temperatures as the seasons change and also as the day changes, to give our body the best understanding of what time of year it is and what time of day it is, because it's one of the ways in which we know where we are. So the trouble that we face in the modern world is that frankly we're never cold. We've adapted to have warm households with central heating, nice warm coats in the winter, and we dare venture outside if it's freezing cold. We want to wrap up warm, which feels comfortable, but the human body is not designed to be comfortable, and we're supposed to be exposed to colder temperatures. So being in a perpetually warm environment can actually, of course, decrease our it increases our sensitivity to the cold, and so we're going to feel that it's even colder than it is. But more so, it can have an effect on the circadian rhythm and potentially the body clock within the brain. Because what's now beginning to be recognised is the real benefits to cold exposure. And it's been shown to be very beneficial to a number of things. What some people would argue is that it's actually hardwired into our DNA to be cold adapted, because after the last extinction event 67 million years ago, all species had to live through a sudden cold surge. And so the issue is not that we should be cold all the time, it's that because we're never exposed to varying degrees of temperature, that we decrease our sensitivity to it. So just like with the varying light cycles being important for our body clock, we need varying temperature cycles also. Research has shown that cold exposure actually strengthens our immune system and can improve the circulation, because we're moving from hot to cold and we require our blood vessels to shunt blood from the surface to our deeper organs as we get cold. So this can help the body get rid of waste products through the lymphatic system, leading to happier, healthy skin and organs. And so it's this shunting of blood that really trains our cardiovascular system. It trains our blood vessels, which are essentially smooth muscles, to work hard. So it's like going to the gym for your blood vessels. Really, really, really good. And also, it can be really, really helpful for actually body fat. So we have two types of body fat, brown and white. And exposure to cold can promote the benefit of this brown fat or adipose tissue, which has been shown to be much more metabolically active and needed for long-term health as we age. So what the cold does is it converts our white fat to brown fat, and this is essentially lost much easier because it burns off quicker. Okay, and so people who expose themselves to cold tend to burn fat easier. Okay, so it can take a little while to adapt, but when the body starts to adapt by adjusting the production of several hormones, then we start to convert this white fat down into brown fat. Adrenaline and noradrenaline are two other hormones that promote the production of heat when we're exposed to cold, because of course it's a stress to the body. And stress in the perfect amount, this kind of Goldilocks formula, not too little, not too much, can be really, really beneficial, because the exposure of these hormones increases the metabolic rate, increases calorie expenditure, and of course, if it were to get to the point where you induce shivering, which we don't necessarily want to do, then of course that's going to increase your metabolism. We've also seen changes in thyroid hormone, which increases following cold exposure. So this has a real big role to play in our metabolism, okay? Allowing the body to burn off calories, allowing the body to essentially, without thyroid hormone, no cell is going to be metabolically healthy or active, okay? It also increases our insulin sensitivity, so it helps stabilize our blood sugar levels, potentially affecting the rate of aging on a cellular level. So there are many, many, many benefits to cold exposure. There's also been a huge amount of research now into the effects of dopamine in the brain when we expose ourselves to the cold. And the exposure of dopamine, instead of it being a real initial spike, like with any pleasure activity, eating chocolate, anything that you do for enjoyment, the difference with cold is, although there's the initial stress, the dopamine release is prolonged over a period of time and is extremely high. It's hundreds of % higher than you would get from other activities. And so essentially, it makes you feel good. You feel so much better for doing it. Of course, there's the stress in the initial period, but it's now starting to be recognized as one of the easiest things that you can do, along with exposure to morning sunlight, to improve your long-term health and wellness, both on a cardiovascular level, but also on a neurological level. So how do we do it? How do we use the power of the cold to maximize your health? So to begin with, it can be as subtle as putting your face into cold water in the sink for as long as you can hold your breath, or it can be just turning the shower down one little bit at the end of the shower for 20 seconds. Or if you're the type of person that wants to jump straight into an ice cold bath, then good on you. But some people need to just slowly building into that, as slowly as they can. So really the key is to cool the surface of the skin down to around 12 degrees Celsius, so that the nerve endings on the skin will then send a message to the brain to start a cascade of hormonal changes. So this adaptation period takes around 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks are quite tough, but after that you'll find that actually it's not so bad and it's quite easy as long as you can keep on with it, okay? So what this does, this gives us the exposure to the cold, so our brain starts to think that, okay, actually I'm having a winter for the first time. And so it can help our hormonal pathways, okay? What you'll find then is actually that when it comes to the winter, you're not cold as much. You're able to tolerate the colder weather much, much easier, okay? So easiest thing to do, start the morning with a cold shower. When I say cold, it can just be cool. It could be 20 seconds at the end of your shower, you put it a little bit colder. 1 week later, you put it a little bit colder again, or you add 10 seconds. It's a gradual process. Remember, the first 2 weeks are horrible. If you jump in at the deep end, you're just not going to stick with it. So make it doable, okay? Become comfortable with being uncomfortable, okay? Now, there are a lot of things to consider as we go through this. We want to be aware of any kind of lightheadedness or any kind of change in coloration of the skin. So if you're getting any symptoms like that, we'd ask you to stop immediately and seek professional help, maybe see your doctor. And prior to each real cold exposure, it can be helpful to have a glass of cold water and possibly some form of snack, because what we don't want is the blood sugars to drop and that lightheadedness to kick in. So you can start with just face dunking, putting your face into ice cold water in the sink. And you can do this just for 2 weeks, for 10 seconds at a time, and build up your tolerance. That will then gradually go into the colder shower, gradually lowering that temperature and increasing that time slowly up to 5 minutes at the end, okay? Slowly then, we'll go to a cold bath, just cold tap water eventually, building up very slowly over time to 10 to 15 minutes. You can even start with wearing socks or gloves because we don't want real coldness of the extremities. We're looking at the core temperature that we want to kind of decrease a little bit, okay? And then after that, of course, we can go even further into cold immersion with actual ice, and we're taking the water temperature down to 3 to 4 degrees. But to begin with, for the most part, for the most people, just gently start turning that shower down to a tolerable level and build up slowly over a period of 2 to 3 weeks.